Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we are covering a topic that's generating a lot of discussion across home arcade. There's a widely circulating rumor involving a possible acquisition deal between Basic Fun and Arcade1up. Now, I got to be clear up front. This information is unverified. It has not been confirmed by either company, and everything we discuss tonight will be framed as alleged or hypothetical. Our purpose here is to look at what's being said publicly, not claim any of it as fact. We are analyzing the situation from a business and legal perspective only. Nothing tonight should be interpreted as legal advice, insider knowledge, or a definitive claim about individuals or organizations. We are discussing publicly circulated information and exploring possible implications if and only if it proves accurate. And let's get into it. All right. I hope everybody has had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I know it is that time of the night. Most of the football games have been played. Your bellies are full. You've had your desserts. You're probably thinking about going back for a late snack and hitting those Thanksgiving leftovers. And you've probably had it up to here with some of the family. So I appreciate everybody joining us for this spectacular show. And if you don't have your popcorn, if you don't have a beverage, I suggest you get one because tonight you're going to need it. So again, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I just want to say how thankful I am for all of you that join us here every week. And for those watching on replay or who just watch all the videos and shorts we do, I just really appreciate it. This year has been amazing. We have grown over 200% in the last year, and I just can't thank you guys enough for subscribing, joining the chat, hanging out with me every week. So this year, I am super thankful for all of you. You guys make this whole thing fun. It's a great hobby, and it just feels like hanging out and having a lot of fun with my friends. So really appreciate all of you being here tonight. So I do want to take a moment to say hi to everybody. I know a lot of people have been posting over the last 24 hours or so. And so it's probably deleted some of those older comments, but we have JJ here who says happy Thanksgiving. We have Gamer Fridge is here. We have Josh Dindy here, says I don't really hate everything. We have R Burger here who's also saying happy Thanksgiving. Of course, Dane Bramage is here, who has been enjoying his Thanksgiving. Stupid Fat Hobbit is in the house and ready to talk about all these rumors. We have Meatball Saucy. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Sergeant Giratina is here. We have Saved by Zero. Vic Vicious. John Fritz. Who else is here? We have MSU Rich. Thanks for stopping by. Fat Hog, Curtis, P-Dubs, Arcade Loft. Yes, all 5 wives are fed. We've got Vito from Perfect Storm Gaming is here. Michael B, the Game Genie. And Galaga Guy 88. Burger Bob. Thanks for dropping by. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I've missed anybody yet. I'm still scrolling. Of course, moderator extraordinaire taking time away from his Thanksgiving. Thanks for dropping by. We have G.I. Joel in the house. Don't forget, guys, tonight at midnight, I assume Eastern, but I'm not sure. Maybe he'll drop it in the chat. Second round of those build choices go on sale. So get your clicky fingers ready. I'm sure they'll go fast. Richard ABK Storm. I don't know what the middle is. I don't want to try to pronounce that. Sir Sega is here. Chris is here. Ojib is here. Johnny Blaze is in the house. And there we go. All right. And either D. Regot, Dre Got, Dr. Egot. Thanks for dropping by. So, again, thanks everybody for being here. And before we get started, I do want to share one quick little thing here because it's really the basis of all our discussion here tonight. So, I do think it's important that we at least start with a foundation of why these topics are so dangerous, not only for content creators discussing them, but those who would purport to spread these rumors, and we'll get more into that in a minute. So what I want to do here is share with you the concept of tortious interference. As you know, this big rumor, the first rumor we're talking about is the fact, or not the fact, the rumor that Basic Fun may be acquiring Arcade1up or has acquired Arcade1up. We don't know. We're going to analyze that, talk about that a little bit, like what could be going on, what would the benefits be, what would the negatives be. We'll get into that, but it is important to understand this legal term called tortious interference, and this is just a straight definition right off of Wikipedia, left to no interpretation here. It says tortious interference is a legal term that refers to the act of one person intentionally damaging another person's contractual or business relationships with a third party, resulting in economic harm. It is recognized as a common law tort that allows the injured party to claim damages against the defendant for wrongful interference with their contractual or business relationships. So, again, tortious interference is a big part of what we'll be talking about tonight. And something that I know Michael B kind of hinted at, talked a little bit about when he covered this rumor about how content creators should be very careful when talking about subjects like this, specifically because of that law. It potentially puts you at civil risk, right? Like you could be sued if your discussion, if the things you say about these rumors, if you purport them as fact and they're not fact, if they're based on insider information that shouldn't have been leaked, can put you at great financial risk. And we aren't talking about mom and pop businesses here. We're talking about businesses that generate well over $100 million a year in revenue, massive amounts of money. And these kinds of people don't just sit quietly by and let people destroy their business relationships. So when anyone discusses these kinds of topics, they need to be squeaky clean and be extra careful about everything they say. So with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about what we are going to cover tonight. And I know some of you guys are probably chatting away. I can't see the chat just yet, but I will get into the chat in a minute. First, we're just going to talk a little bit about the rumors themselves. Of course, we have the rumor of the acquisition, which is probably what most of you are here to talk about. Like, we'll talk about the M&A process, merger and acquisition, unlike probably most other YouTubers and probably most of the other people in this space that are linked to arcade companies. I've actually been involved in 4 merger and acquisitions. I've been on the purchasing side multiple times where I negotiated the purchase of another organization, and I've been on the selling side. So we will talk through a little bit of the different ways such a deal might be occur if indeed Basic Fun is trying to acquire Arcade1up and what their options would be. We'll talk about the positives, the negatives, and we'll get into all that. But then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the other rumors that have been circulating, and that is how this information was, how this rumor was sent out, how the information was leaked publicly, and what are the legal implications there. and we're going to talk about some of the names involved and allegedly involved. Allegedly, I don't know for a fact any of this is Kurt. We're not verifying any of this. We are summarizing what others have already stated publicly. So this may be true. It could be partially true, or it could be completely false. At this point, we simply don't know yet. But that is what we are going to talk about on all of those subjects. So while we continue to talk about some of the other things we're going to do, I want you guys to drop in the chat. Just let me know if this acquisition is true. If Basic Fun is acquiring Arcade1up, does this make business sense in your mind? Think about it. Drop it in the chat. Let us know what you're feeling. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the timing and the community's reaction to the timing of this release. Do you know there's been a lot of discussion about the timing? We know it came right on the heels of Iconic Arcade announcing their third delay, pushing the product into a second year. And so there's lots of rumors and accusations being thrown around. So we'll talk a little bit about those rumors. May or may not have anything to do with it. People are asking, so we're going to talk about it, see if it's a coincidence, or we're going to talk, was it a PR move? Who knows? But we'll talk about it. And then we're going to get into some of the legal risks, as I kind of mentioned earlier. So we're going to talk about those things. Briefly touched on it here at the beginning with tortious interference, but there are a lot of other legal issues involved as you hear all of these rumors and we dig into it a little bit. So that's a little bit of what we're discussing tonight, all of these rumors. Again, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. This should be a fun one. So let's talk a little. I see your chats here. I'm just scanning them as we talk. But first, we have to talk about the sources of this, where it first popped up. So I want to make sure to give these guys the credit they're due. They are the ones who first reported it. Of course, we have HistorianCM, who posted this on the Arcade1up subreddit yesterday. We also had, at virtually the same time, MikeOfAllTrades, big fan of Moat, did the first YouTube reporting of this rumor. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so I have linked both these guys' reporting in the description. So make sure you guys go check those out. You can read this article for yourself there. Definitely go give him a view and a one up or whatever the arrow is over there. And check out Moat's video. If you're not subscribed, give the man a subscription and be sure to hit like on that video. So let's take a look real quick at what HistorianCM has to say. And his title, of course, here is Arcade1up being sold to Basic Fun. It's not pure speculation anymore. These are HistorianCM's words and reporting on this. But since nobody's saying out loud, consider this the unspoken truth dancing just beneath the surface. The rumors that Basic Fun have quietly taken control of Arcade1up keep popping up in some suspicious places, and this time they're specific. There aren't any flashy press releases yet. There's no CEO announcement or formal handshake pics. So that's interesting. No flashy press releases yet, as if maybe somebody knows there's something coming. And no one is willing to go on the record. But industry insiders, ? They're doing more than just nodding. Here are a few of the rumors that we've now heard from multiple sources. Of course, we are all familiar with who the industry insiders here who are communicating with these groups. There's only a handful. So Arcade1up employees have been told they can openly seek employment with other companies. So that's interesting. That's not likely public information, right? Arcade1up software development partners and or testers may not be getting paid. Another potentially not public information. I point this out intentionally, as we will discuss later. Only existing previously manufactured goods are going to be sold moving forward. So that implies like nobody's manufacturing anything more from Arcade1up. Licensing deals are not being renewed and or are out for bidding. Again, more insider information if true. There are no new projects in active development. Again, something only insiders would have knowledge to. So ultimately, the source of these rumors is very, very important. Uh, while those bits are just rumored, they're pretty strong rumors. And as you said, we hear up here, it's the unspoken truth. While those bits are just rumored, there are other more well-documented movements happening that would seem to confirm speculation, including the recent departure of Arcade1up's interim CEO Dora, as well as several former Arcade1up employees moving to Basic Fun, including Cyrus Rosenberg. Adding intrigue is the well-documented revelation that uncle of Cyrus Rosenberg, Mike Rosenberg of Intrepid Investment Bankers, may have assisted in brokering Arcade1up's initial buyout with Center Partners Management. So that's going back quite a while, right? We're talking about adding intrigue is the well-documented revelation that Uncle Cyrus Rosenberg, Mike Rosenberg, may have assisted in brokering Arcade1up initial buyout with Center Partners. So not sure what he's saying there, because obviously there was a a believed relationship there where Center Partners bought their debt or made the venture loan to Arcade1up that ultimately took control of Arcade1up. So is he saying here that Mike Rosenberg is negotiating the buyout of Basic Fun? Basic Fun is buyout of Arcade1up and is helping Arcade1up take over full ownership from the investment firm. It's unclear as to what he's saying here. That would explain. I mean, Cyrus Rosenberg got in with Arcade1up because of Mike Rosenberg's leveraged position there. So is that why Cyrus is now at Basic Fun? Was he negotiating that arrangement and said part of the arrangement, we need Cyrus in there? I don't know. But it's very unclear as to what's being said, alleged here on this sentence, in my opinion. Anyway, and of course, there are additional tangible elements, including the fact that Basic Fun products are strikingly similar to Arcade1up products, and rumors of future products suggest Arcade1up may no longer have a grip on their few remaining licensing agreements. This all comes as Arcade1up continues fighting legal headaches and production hiccups. Meanwhile, Basic Fun has the retail muscle and cash flow to go big, so a quietly folded acquisition would explain a lot of what's happening with Arcade1up. The sudden shifts, the licensing moves, the strange new collaborations nobody saw coming. Of course, until we see an official statement, this can all be considered rumor and speculation, so everyone should do their own research, and none of this should be taken as legal advice or purchase advice. But if you ask around, anyone with their ear to the ground will tell you this has been in play for quite some time. I'm curious who these people are with their ear to the ground. So is it being leaked on purpose? Quite possibly. Is it legitimate? We've seen the receipts. So which is it? Is it a rumor, or you have the receipts and have reason to believe it is? So I'd be very interested in knowing here what these receipts are, because that definitely is not rumor territory. So jump in, speculate, sit tight. The Quiet Revolution may be the biggest home arcade shakeup of the decade. So it's interesting. We have a few things here, and I'm not going to dissect this too much, but it's clear from this message's various statements in here are designed to put Arcade1up in a very negative light. So, again, we'll get a little bit into what possibly the motivations are, but you have to wonder, Like, if this isn't a done deal, what is the purpose of saying that their employees are have been told to leave or seek other employment, or worse, that they're not paying people and that they owe developers money and that they aren't making anything new and their licensing deals are falling through. Like, these are all assets and important things, like, you as a buyer would be interested in. So some of these statements could potentially interfere with an acquisition that may not be complete. Like, what if these are things end up not being true? They're led to believe, Basic Fun is led to believe these are true based on these rumors, and it blows up the whole deal. I wouldn't want to be the people making some of these statements with Arcade1up if that were to be the case. So a lot of these statements are flat out designed, fighting legal headaches. I'm not aware of any legal headaches Arcade1up is currently fighting. Their lawsuit from Atari never moved forward, presumably because whatever back invoices were paid. Their lawsuit, ThinkUp's lawsuit with Arcade1up, was settled several months ago. And I am not aware of any other pending or current legal headaches or litigation underway. So this is an interesting statement. Production hiccups, that's another interesting one. Are we talking about their use of I'm drawing a blank. My brain just kind of to shut down, but they're receivables loans, right? Like, because that's pretty normal for businesses to do those things. So pretty interesting stuff. These are very negative statements towards Arcade1up, and I don't see really any negative statements about Basic Fun in this. It's clearly slanted negative towards Arcade1up. And it's just interesting because a lot of these are things probably tell this nobody's heard before, right? About employees being told to seek employment, about people not being paid, et cetera, et cetera. So that's Historian's report. And at the same time, we mentioned Moat released his video. And again, I'm going to point something out here. Hat tip to Moat. I don't know where he got the rumor information from, but we will talk about that. But I wanted to draw attention to one thing he said in here. This will be important later on. Around the 6:30 minute mark, he says, at 6:30-ish, he says, I'll say this, keep your eyes open, pay attention, because I'm sure some of this stuff will probably drop on Reddit or something like that, on the Arcade1up Reddit or whatever else. You know what I mean? But yeah, just want to let you guys know. Have a great Thanksgiving. So how, again, we're going to circle back to this, but how did Moat know simultaneously that a post on Reddit was going up about the same subject? That implies that there was some sort of discussions happening behind the scenes between multiple creators or content creators, or perhaps one person organizing these things. We're going to get into that because I have heard from now multiple sources who that person is, or alleged to be. Again, I don't know this for a fact. It is alleged rumors. So we're going to talk about that. It's important. So before we get into that, again, appreciate all you guys dropping by. Looks like Cornercade jumped in and everything. So let me get Historian's reporting off of there. Really appreciate him for doing that legwork and getting that out there. So let's talk about the buyout itself. So mergers and acquisitions can really be structured in two major ways, right? One is an equity sale and one is an asset sale. That's how a company really acquires another company. Now, in Basic Fun's life, I believe they've only acquired 4 companies from what I've seen, at least recently. There's only been 4 companies, most of which have been around production not actually brands. But you might be saying, but James, they have all these huge brands like Care Bears and Tonka and all this stuff. That's right, because they do. But what they have is much like what Arcade1up has. They have licensing deals. So take Tonka, for example. They have a licensing arrangement with Hasbro to produce Tonka trucks. So Basic Fun is a licensing giant. They license from lots of different licensors. That is their bread and butter. So we know they have licenses with all different kinds of arcade companies based on their arcade classics, little ones. As we know, like the reason this rumor likely has come up is because they're in the same market. They're using former ThinkUp employees to build the cabs, which is why they look exactly like Arcade1up's cabs. Again, former arcade insiders tell us exactly who these people are that are building these cabs. And allegedly, right, they worked for ThinkUp. And that's why they look very, very similar and look very much the same. And in fact, one of these people was recently at the Pinball Expo and kind of outed himself to several other creators, which is pretty interesting for something they're trying to keep on the down low. But that's a different discussion, I guess. So since it wasn't me, I won't be talking about any of that. But there you go. So that's the two major ways. And when you do an equity purchase, oftentimes that means you're acquiring all the company's bad debt, you're accompanying all of their accounts payables, all their accounts receivables, all their assets, their buildings, their backstock, their inventory. You inherit their contracts usually, potentially not licenses, because licenses generally have a severability clause because they don't want you just giving license away to somebody that maybe the licensor hasn't approved to own it. So usually licenses may have some sort of clause in there, and you would have to have negotiated that in there for transferability. And I'm not saying they do or don't. I've never seen any of their licenses that are currently in place. Obviously, the Atari license that is now null and void is out there as part of the public record on that lawsuit. You can take a look at those documents and see if Arcade1up has negotiated those kinds of things. But as at this point, we don't know, and it's all rumor anyway. So allegedly or presumably, you wouldn't get any of that. So you would also get things like their patents. Arcade1up does have a utility patent on a flat packed shipped home arcade replica product, right? So they do have a utility patent there. We've talked about it before. There's a lot of argument in my humble, non-legal expert, non-licensed attorney opinion that it's not defensible. There are prior art. There are the company that actually designed these and never transferred their licenses. There's lots of other info around that would suggest that patent is probably not defensible, but they were granted it. So you have to take an extra action to get it removed. So it's not just that simple to say it's not defensible. You have to actually prove that, and that takes time and money, etc. So that is an asset that Arcade1up has. There's also something called goodwill, and a lot of companies will have goodwill on their balance sheet because of their brand. Brands in and of themselves have a monetary value. If you look at Coca-Cola's balance sheet, you'll find they have a massive goodwill because there's very few brands in the world as recognizable as Coca-Cola. So without a doubt, Arcade1up has some goodwill on their balance sheet. They have the brand Arcade1up. As you guys know, it's a division of Tastemakers. That's the real parent company of Arcade1up, and likely who Basic Fun would be negotiating with over an acquisition. I believe Tastemakers does Hatchimals and a bunch of other toys too. I don't know what they all are. I won't even pretend to guess. I'm not even 100% sure on Hatchimals, but I believe that's accurate. But they They are the people that own the brand Arcade1up, because Arcade1up is a brand. So there is value from having Arcade1up. And as I mentioned before, they do have contracts with people. Whether that's some of those are still in place. I mean, very publicly last year, there was an exclusive agreement between Kokum, Alliance Entertainment, their parent Alliance Entertainment, that was an exclusive distribution deal. But yet, in less than a year, Arcade1up was working with a separate distributor, Solutions to Go, and no longer using Kokum for their wholesale distribution. So, not sure what happened with that exclusive deal. Was it 6 months? Was it a year? I don't know, but it never went away. Interestingly enough, despite requests for comment or clarification from Alliance Entertainment, they also have never disclosed that exclusive agreement has expired, which is interesting because Alliance Entertainment is a publicly traded company. They very much publicly announced the exclusive arrangement as a big benefit to their investors, yet have never disclosed to investors that exclusive arrangement has gone away or is expired. So that's interesting. And repeated requests for comment or to clarify just go completely unanswered with their investment people. So that's interesting. So no telling if that is still in place or not. But probably what is of the absolute most value to a company like Basic Fun, besides the name, would be the existing contractual relationships with the retailers. Let's face it, Basic Fun to date has been unable, it appears, to get their cabinets, their Ultra Series cabinets, their Counter Series cabinets into retailers like Walmart, Target, Best Buy. As of yet, the only retailer that Basic Fun is using for these newer, higher cabinets is Spreetail, an online retailer who sells as a third party through Amazon, Walmart, Target, etc. But those companies aren't actually selling it. It is Spreetail and Basic Fun. So that could potentially be huge value if they can take the name and take over those distribution contracts. That's a foot in the door to get their cabs in under those same brands. So instead of using the Arcade Classics branding, they could potentially use the Arcade1up branding and say, hey, do you want these in your next shipment? Or if you want this one, you got to take 50 of these, who knows, whatever, right? Like they could potentially work that in. So there's that. And as we go forward, let's get a quick super chat here from NASA Canes fan of $9.99. Really appreciate that. Happy Thanksgiving, James. So the sale is happening. I assume you're talking about G.I. Joe's sale because that is happening. If you're talking about Basic Fun and Iconic or Arcade1up, it's all rumor. We have no idea if it's true or not. There's a lot of mixed messaging in some of the announcements as to rumor and fact and receipts, but it is, as of now, rumor, and I suggest everybody treat it that way until there's some sort of official announcement. It's pure rumor. We don't know what motivates these rumors. It could be designed to spoil this potential buyout. It could be designed to grease the wheels for another company. It could be, there's so many motives that behind a leak like this, it's dangerous to run out and report it. What if it's, leaked by, again, I'm not saying this, what if it's leaked by Basic Fun themselves in order to try to embolden their position to get a lower rate? I'm not saying they did that. I'm using that as an example. What if it's leaked by an interested third party who views Basic Fun and Arcade1up as competitors, and they don't want them coming together, forming some sort of mega competitor overshadowing their company? Again, not saying that happened, but what if it was? Like, there are so many things involved in here that could be motivations. It's hard to dig into all of that, right? So right now we're just sticking with what if it's true? What if this buyout is happening? What would it look like? How would it be structured? So in my opinion, there's not there's more negative than positive of an equity buyout. With the amount of money they potentially own to investors, it could be very problematic. Now, having said that, there's could be, I think we have Basic Fund recently, as they exited bankruptcy, has talked about being in the best financial position they've ever been in. Their CEO and founder is the largest equity holder. You could be doing an equity swap with Center Partners saying, hey, we'll take on X number of dollars in debt. You get X amount of equity in Basic Fund, and we take over and we go from there. That's absolutely legitimate. That's likely scenario if they are going to do an equity swap, which is likely the case. I don't see the asset swap, but that could be possible. They could literally just buy the name. They could just buy the outstanding inventory. It would be hard to transfer the contracts to a third party of Arcade1up's without buying the whole company, because you would be selling that contract, and generally you have to have special language and addendums to do that. So I don't really think an asset purchase is likely. Now, having said all that, what I think is most likely is that Tastemakers exits the home arcade space, goes back to focusing on Hatchimals and the other products that they release, the actual toys, and instead licenses the Arcade1up brand to Basic Fun. And for Basic Fun, obviously Arcade1up is a bigger name. Basic Fun apparently doesn't, what we've heard is that Basic Fun doesn't even want people calling them Basic Fun. They want them calling them Arcade Classics, but they didn't put Arcade Classics all over the cab. They put Basic Fun all over the cab. So if that's the branding they wanted, they should have stuck to that branding and not put your Basic Fun logo everywhere. But that's neither here nor there. But I think more likely, based on what we've seen on Basic Fun's track record of acquisitions, the far more likely scenario to me is that they just license the Arcade1up name from Tastemakers, and Tastemakers uses that money to pay down the debt of what they owe for the venture capital, and then Tastemakers continues as the toy company they've always been and continues to recoup money that way. Now, I think option one, the equity buyout, a good scenario or good likelihood if that's the way they were going to do it, or the more likely would be the licensing route, in my opinion. But so that's what I have to say of the rumors of why they might do it. It's the name, it's the access to retailers, and potentially that patent. Anything else that Arcade1up has to offer, quite frankly, Basic Fun doesn't need. They have a designer that designed for Arcade1up. They don't need any help in that department. They probably need help in actually executing, but they do have the people there to help them get in the right way. So hopefully they learn from Cyrus, not where to cut, where to stop cutting corners, and where it's worth putting in the little extra effort. But to me, there's not any other reason Basic Fun would want to do this. It other than the name, like I said, and the access to retailers. There's nothing Arcade1up has to offer that Basic Fun doesn't already have. So to me, it's a weird move. On one hand, I can understand it, but on the other, I'm like, that's nuts. Now, we'll say from an Arcade1up perspective, in my opinion, if they're the ones looking for this, obviously I felt like they're investment bankers, because that's who owns them right now, right? As investment bankers have probably been looking to sell them from the moment they took over. The reality is they're sitting on a cash cow. They just have the wrong people knowing it. So if I were in the room with them, I would be telling them, you guys are going to throw away a golden investment because you've hired the wrong people. You put the wrong people in charge of making decisions about what cabs you produce and why. And that is what is killing your company. You cut the wrong corners. There were corners to be cut. You cut the wrong ones because the people doing it didn't understand the market, and they still don't understand the market. And if you just hire some sound business people and not people out of college that don't have a lot of experience in doing these other things, you could turn that thing around in 6 months. You are sitting on licenses right now that would make you millions of dollars that you could get into production within 18, probably within 6 months. You already have the PCB designs, you already have the arcade cabinet designs, and you could print money right now. And it wouldn't take much effort. And then you can use that to repair the relationships that some of those other people have destroyed for you. That's just me. So I think, the bankers are nuts. They just, I get it. They want their quick money back. They're willing to say, hey, if I can get back what I invested, I'm willing to get out of it. Or, if I can get a little bit of return by getting equity in basic fund and hopefully that grows, then I'm good. But to me, man, you guys are sitting on a gold mine and you just don't know it. All right. So that's my analysis of basic fun and that. So let's talk about the other rumors. So the other rumors is where this gets interesting, I think. So I've now heard from multiple people that behind the scenes that all right. So again, rumor, and this is all alleged, may be true or not. I have not seen the receipts. I've not seen the receipts. This is all rumor, but I've heard behind the scenes from a few people that Arcade Insiders Paul Mindeman, aka Neo Hyper 64, aka Neo's Arcade News, was sending this information about this rumor around to multiple people. Again, this is the allegation being alleged by others. I'm really merely repeating the rumor that he was sharing it with people because he couldn't go live with it and couldn't report it because of his relationship with Spreetail on the Arcade Insiders. You guys know Paul Mindeman co-hosts the show with an employee of Spreetail. Spreetail has a distribution arrangement. They're the online retailer for Basic Fun. So there is a connection. There's a conflict of interest there, which would be very dangerous. So the rumor is that Paul Mindeman was sending this around to a bunch of people to get them to report on it. Now, again, that's rumor. I don't know that that's the fact. But here's the danger in that. Paul Mindeman, as he correctly states in this alleged email and messaging that's been sent out, was aware that there is a potential conflict of interest there because of Spreetail. And it could be viewed as interfering with said negotiations or buyout. Now, is there again, all rumor, but what we can see publicly, right, is that a fellow Redditor, as you guys know, Paul Mindeman is famous for his activity on the Arcade1up subreddit. So here we have somebody with a close relationship to Paul, who was one of the first to release the info and clearly has a lot of detailed information. Now, did he get it from Paul? I don't know. All I know is that other creators, the rumors are that Paul reached out to them with this information well before some of these things went live. We also know Moat went live and knew, or appears to have known, that this was also going to be posted simultaneously on Reddit, which suggests that there is somebody behind the scenes potentially that was spreading this information and organizing the release. For what motives? We don't know. As I talked about before, there could be several motives. Now, this is something that I think why you see companies don't do their own YouTube that covers news and stuff. It's one thing to be, say, like Zen Studios and go out there and do your pinball show where you're announcing your new releases, getting everybody hyped and making all the announcements and showing them the previews and showing them the gameplay footage. Same with PlayStation and Xbox. All these companies do that. They all have their own YouTube shows. But what you don't see is those companies doing YouTube shows where they're talking about products they sell and products they don't sell, products they compete with, companies they compete with. And that, because that presents very murky waters. You can get yourself into trouble really quickly with that, right? You have the potential to have inside information that could be damaging if released. Not saying that that's where these alleged rumors came from. Again, it's all rumors at this point. But it could have, right? And if that's the case, that's really problematic for Spreetail, for Spreetail's employee on that show, and for Paul Mindeman. Hugely problematic if that is indeed what occurred. But that's the rumors I'm hearing, is that Paul sent this information around to a whole bunch of creators to try to get them to make the announcement that day. So that's one potential source. Like, let's say he got it from his relationship with Kevin and Spreetail and just wanted to spread it out there. I don't even know if he did it, right? But that's one potential motive that could occur, which would be really bad, right? That insider information, guarantee you there are non-disclosure agreements in every contract Spreetail has. That inside information has to be okay to be shared. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but I've never seen a contract where that's not part of the contract. But we've talked about the other thing. Everybody kind of knows that John D has a very close relationship with Paul Mindeman and other content creators. That John's been exclusively using Paul Mindeman and the Arcade Insiders to release information on Iconic Arcade. So he is working closely with them. Obviously, Spreetail is the retailer for Iconic Arcade. John's been known as a former Arcade1up employee to share information from Arcade1up and set up these shows. So given that, the other rumor, right? The one we know that happened, right, is that Iconic Arcade has unfortunately been forced to delay again to get a product perfect. And I hope they get it perfect. I have always been a fan of that cab, even though I have second guesses from the changes that they made to the widescreen and making it bigger and all that stuff. But, the guys behind that, like Sean, Bobby Vu, like I want all these guys to have huge success. So it was super unfortunate for me that those guys had to delay again, because I know that some of the trolls and idiots in this space are going to eat them alive. And then there are going to be legitimately people that are going to have concerns because it's spreading into another year. I would say it's, New Wave Toys is still way further delayed than Iconic Arcade. So there are worse problems out there. And I have to give John D a huge shout out for coming out and offering that huge discount to pre-order people along with additional games. Like, what better way I've never seen another company deal with a delay that way. So shout out to them for doing that. So again, don't know if, rumors that John D shared this information with Paul. But it's all rumors and speculation. We don't have any proof of any of this. So take that into account. It could all be bullshit for all I know. But if he's the source, it could be potentially, it appears, not saying it is, but it appears maybe it was to distract from that announcement. Now, Does that really distract from it? I don't think so. I think people are still going to talk about it. I think especially people that pre-ordered are still going to mention it. Worse, I would think if that is the source, like you bought yourself goodwill. You discounted this thing pretty heavily for those people with pre-orders. That's goodwill. That's showing people you're being out in front. You're being honest with them. You want to make it perfect. You don't want to send out day one patches. And because you stand behind it so much and appreciate the support so much, you're going to give them this huge discount off the purchase. Like that's good news, I would think. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for him to be behind that as the rumors state, but you never know. But like I said, so rumors are like it was fed to Paul Mindeman by John, and then Paul fed it to all these other people. I don't know if any of that is true or not, as I said, but it's a problem because of tortious interference. Or so it could be an extreme problem for somebody like John, who had a working relationship as a vice president for Arcade1up tastemakers. We've all heard the rumors about a cease and desist, likely around a non-compete clause, which we know are non-enforceable. Like non-competes are a joke. But what isn't jokes is NDAs. And usually in employment contracts with executive level people, and especially if they depart with a severance. So again, we don't know the terms under which John left Arcade1up, whether it was voluntary or involuntary. But if you can assume that it was involuntary, given the other departures at the time, and you can't really assume that, but if you hypothesize that, like we're hypothesizing all this stuff, you would have to say, I've never seen a severance package that didn't exclude an NDA as part of it. So could Arcade1up's employees or legal staff be so incompetent that they only did a non-compete and didn't also do a separate non-disclosure agreement? I don't know. Who knows? But theoretically, there would also be a non-disclosure agreement in there, which would prevent you from doing things like, say, leaking prototype images, providing insider information, even if you learn that insider information after the fact due to your relationships with employees that are still employed there and all your other connections. So there are a lot of these things outlive the person's employment from that standpoint. And so again, could be hugely problematic, not only from the tortious interference, but for violations of non-disclosure agreements and everything else. Then you have potential issues around, again, I'm not accusing anybody of this, but you have potential conflict of interest around the whole Spreetail Arcade Insiders stuff, where their relationship with Basic Fun and Iconic Arcade puts them in a situation where being the source of this kind of information could be potentially very damaging to Spreetail's relationship with Basic Fun, to their relationship with Arcade1up, to their relationship with other retailers in this space. Like, it's hugely problematic. And again, I'm not saying they were involved at all in this. In fact, I don't think they were. But I don't know. All I know is the rumors and the speculations and the hypotheses around this stuff. So that's why companies generally don't do these kinds of shows, because it's real easy to get caught up in a lot of bullshit that you had nothing to do with, and it just looks bad and is super dangerous. But that's the risk they took on by doing this, Arcade Insiders, a John D. Joint show with, that put together by Paul and John and all that stuff. So it's like, whatever, like, right? All rumors, hypothesis, but that's what we got. That's what I wanted to share with you guys. Like, this is why YouTubers don't talk about this stuff and shouldn't talk about this stuff. You become a co-conspirator. You are just as liable as the original leaker. if the leaker has inside information that they gained through um, their legal relationships with these companies and leaked it, there's likely violations there. If this acquisition isn't completed, you have tortious, and if it falls through, if it causes the price to go up or down, if it endangers them in any way financially, you're going to be at risk there, which is why you will not hear from me whether I think this acquisition is real or not. I don't care. We're going to talk about the rumors, its potential impact. We're going to talk about the rumors around the source of the leak because people are asking about it, people are talking about it, and we need to understand what those implications are, um, just for your own safety and sake. So, I know, like, when Paul discussed with me a long time ago that, not so long ago, several months back, that he was talking to John D and stuff. I warned him then. I was like, look, I like John quite a bit. You have to know that anything he tells you comes with an agenda, and you have to make sure you cover your bases. So I hope Paul wasn't involved in this and these rumors are all bullshit. Um, because this is something you probably don't want to be involved in. Like, this rumor could potentially be damaging in the millions and multi-millions, like tens to hundreds of millions of dollars. And you do not want to be involved in that shit in any way whatsoever. And the only reason I'm talking about it is because the rumors out there, other people have talked about these rumors, and there's a lot of stuff being spread. And I just don't want to see anybody else potentially getting themselves in any kind of legal danger they shouldn't be getting themselves into. Um, you've got to treat these things uh, with respect. And I don't think any of these companies are publicly traded. But boy, it gets even worse if one of these companies is publicly traded and the SEC is involved. Oh boy, there's a whole other level of shitstorm that can come down on you involving a publicly traded company. There's a reason you have to deal with the investor relations peoples at these big corporates. The reason why I talk to Alliance Entertainment through investor relations is because of the SEC. You can get in a shitstorm of trouble with leaked information involving publicly traded companies. And so, like, just words of warning. So, yeah, it's a mess. Again, it's all rumors. I hope it's all just complete bullshit. Um, but we needed to talk through the potential dangers of all these people talking about it because it is very problematic, and we know that, there's been lots of things going on for years, lots of allegations. We know rumors around Centipede coming out a while back. We know uh, rumors of various prototypes. We saw pre-production stuff involving, um, basic fun long before we should have. Um, you know, things at events where photos weren't allowed to be taken. Some reason we had uh, leaks of pre-production packaging and cabs, all those things at events where nobody's supposed to be taking pictures. So very interesting, very. I just thought it was worth talking about going through kind of these situations because, as I like to discuss things from a business and legal perspective, and everything I'm hearing around this is a legal nightmare for creators in this space. So to to parrot what Michael B said, be super careful when talking about any of this stuff. It likely should just go away, but it won't because it's out there now. So hopefully, whatever public statements are going to get made soon get made if there are any, and we know one way or another whether this rumor is true or not, and then we can talk about it from that standpoint. Until then, I would be super cautious discussing any of these hypothetical or rumors. I just wanted to cover this from the business and legal perspective to give you guys all the info. All anybody I mentioned here is because of the rumors. I've not seen any evidence any of these people are involved at all. And I don't want you to come away thinking that I did that, because I am not blaming anybody in there. I'm pointing out what is publicly stated and the rumors that have been flying around about that stuff, just so we know that the damage that people are being put in when those rumors are getting spread around. And when you talk about any of this stuff, super problematic. And in the future, I would suggest people steer clear of these kinds of rumors and things. It's just not something you want to get involved in. It's why, you know, we didn't talk about, you know, rumored cease and desist. Again, you get yourself in a whole lot of trouble with no facts. I'm surprised legal action wasn't taken against people spreading those rumors, but it wasn't me who was wounded by those rumors. So, but very, very interesting stuff. And again, so I'm doing this stream much like I did back then on why you don't talk about these things unless you actually have proof or it's public information and you confirm with multiple sources, all that stuff. Like I said, these rumors I've now heard from multiple people. This is not isolated stuff. They are rumors, still just the same. And until they are proven true or proven false, you should be treating them as such. That's all I'm going to say on that. Now, I know you guys have been chatting up a fucking storm in here, and I apologize for going on my rant, and not really paying attention to the chat. I was trying to be sure that I covered everything in an appropriate way, being I like all of these people that are involved. I respect many of them. I want many of them to be super successful. Sometimes I don't respect what some of them do, but not everybody's perfect, right? People fuck up. I've fucked up in my time a few times or two. Everybody fucks up. So I always believe in forgiveness. I've shown that with other creators that have done really stupid things and put their foot in their mouths not once but twice. But I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, give them the grace of second chances, and I respect the hell out of a lot of these people. And it's just unfortunate that people are being caught up in these rumors. And I want you guys to know the legal implications of that, of why you won't hear some of these things talked about by various channels, why these kinds of rumors are dangerous, and why you just try to avoid them whenever possible. So, yeah, that's all I got to say on that. On the other hand, I do have to say this, not to change the subject, but how about them Cowboys? Not a Cowboys fan, but boy, I love it when the Chiefs lose. And it'll take all but a wing and a prayer for the Chiefs to come back now. And so, man, my Broncos just got to keep on rolling, keep on riding. James had to choke down his wives for turkeys. Let's see. I'm trying to go through here. So we've talked a lot about those former people working at arcane companies. Like, right, we've talked about it. It's all been very public as to who the puppet masters are. We know who they are. There you go. Thanks, MG. Rumors, MG. Rumors, speculation, and hypotheticals. This is the F-bomb stream. Has I been saying the F-bomb a lot? If I have, I haven't even noticed. I appreciate that, Meatball. I try to do it right, and I try to bring you guys the legal analysis from a non-lawyer, but somebody who's done a lot of contracts, dealt with a lot of legal negotiations and legalese, and I've dealt with my share of high-powered, expensive attorneys. So yeah, and it's a big hobby of mine. I did want to be a lawyer at one point. Uh, yeah, and you gotta give people grace. That's the whole point. Sometimes we give them too much grace, right? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, kind of a thing. But it is, it is. James is all emotional. Um, all right, Bob Marley in my head now. I'm guessing there's a Bob Marley song that I just said the lyrics to. Israel says, thanks for all the research you do. Appreciate that, Israel. By the way, I heard rumors that you've got or about to get your uh, uh, build choice. So can't wait to see that and what you do with it. That's awesome. I must have been saying the F bomb a lot. So, and not even realizing it. Um, oh, I got you. Nice. So I appreciate everybody being here. I know Mike has kicked off a stream 7 minutes ago where you can watch him play the new NES games on Nintendo Switch Online. So be sure to check that out. I had a ton of fun tonight, even if I was mainly just talking to myself. And I apologize for not being so active in the chat. Really, again, appreciate you guys spending your Thanksgiving night with me. I always love Thanksgiving night. You know, it's a little known fact. It's the #1 night of the year for bars as everybody comes home from college and wants to get away from their family and go back out drinking. So it's a huge night for the folks who sell the liquor. So hope everybody had a blast and we gave you some reprieve so that you can go back and hang out more with the family tomorrow and the rest of the night. And as always, you made my Thanksgiving super fun for being here. And it looks like NASA Kane's back with another 989 says, in the channel rules, rule #1, thou shalt not speak ill of John D. There you go. Some people know who masters the puppets around here. Gamer fridge attacked by live turkeys was insane. Yeah, so if you guys haven't seen that, I dropped one of those Sora compilations of a bunch of the home arcade YouTubers as a fun little Thanksgiving prank joke thing. So check that short out if you haven't seen it. Appreciate it. And Zero, I hope you got your Evercade because it shows us it was delivered few days ago. So again, appreciate it. You absolutely killed it in our game last week. And so congrats to you. Hope you enjoy it. And again, NASA Canes fan, thanks for all the support tonight. Really appreciate it, everybody. Thank you for all you guys do, coming to the show every week, hanging out, chatting, having a good time. And, you know, this community wouldn't be a community without all you guys' dedication to all of those of us who stream and hang out, the content we make. You guys watch that, you hang out with all of us. We see you in all of the show's chats, having a good time, having fun. That's what makes this community great. You know, if you have an opportunity, if you're into VR or some of these other things, definitely come hang out. We play Walkabout Golf, we play Demio, we play lots of different things, Mario Kart all together. Those things are fun. Definitely get involved because we love hanging out with all the people in the community and just having a good time. And Josh Dandy, as we're going away, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family as well. Have a great night, everybody. And you know what we do here. Until next time, have fun.